Ever wonder why we get A's, B's, and C's? It feels so normal, right? But what if I told you the way your grades are calculated is based on a system that's barely 100 years old, and it almost didn't happen this way at all? Today, we're diving into the surprising history of how school grading systems evolved. From medieval oral exams to AI-driven, personalized learning, we're going to uncover the truth about how grades came to define education. Let's start at the beginning. Picture a classroom, but not one with desks or whiteboards. Instead, imagine a candlelit room in the year 1350. A group of students, young men mostly, gather around a teacher. No notebooks, no scantrons, and definitely no A+. In the Middle Ages, education was oral. You learned by listening. You proved you knew something by reciting it, out loud, often in Latin. These were public performances. You didn't hand in a paper. You stood up and spoke your understanding of Aristotle or the scriptures, and if you were learning a trade, it was all about apprenticeship. You didn't take a test to become a blacksmith. You demonstrated your skills to a master who judged your readiness. So how were you assessed? You weren't, at least not with a grade. You either knew it or you didn't. Evaluation was personal, subjective, and deeply tied to relationships. This system had strengths. Students focused on mastery, not memorizing for a test, but it had flaws too. No standardization meant no easy way to compare learning between students or schools. And as more people began to get access to education, especially during the Renaissance and Enlightenment, this informal system wasn't enough. Fast forward to the 1800s. The world is changing fast. Factories are booming, cities are growing, and the demand for skilled labor is rising. Education systems begin to expand, and with them comes a need for efficiency. This is when numbers enter the picture. Schools begin experimenting with numerical marks. A student might get a 93 for math and 85 for history. It sounds normal to us now, but back then, it was revolutionary. Why? Because it created a scalable, repeatable way to measure learning. The model mimicked the factory floor. Input, output, standardization. Teachers became evaluators. Students were sorted by numbers, and grades were tools for organizing and comparing. By the late 19th century, report cards began to reflect this industrial mindset. Feedback shifted from personal commentary to quick, quantitative summaries. And students? They started to internalize their scores as reflections of self-worth. One prominent example, William Farish, a professor at Cambridge in the late 1700s, is often credited as one of the first to use numerical grades in higher education. He believed that objective numbers could replace subjective judgment. But not everyone was on board. Critics worried that reducing a student's learning to a number stripped away nuance. Still, the system spread, especially in the United States. By the early 20th century, letter grades entered the scene. The University of Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts is often cited as one of the first institutions to adopt the A through F scale in the 1890s. At first, an A meant something very different than today. It could represent a score of 95-100, while a B was 85-94. But soon, this letter system began to take root nationwide. Why letters? They were simple, easy to understand, and offered a broad categorization. Parents could glance at a report card and instantly know how their child was doing. Schools could sort students more easily. And eventually, colleges began using GPA, grade point averages, to determine academic standing. But then came something that changed everything: the bell curve. In the mid-20th century, many educators began grading students in a way that forced a certain distribution of grades. Most students would get a C, a few would get A's or F's. It wasn't about whether students had all mastered the material, it was about maintaining statistical normality. Think about that. Under the bell curve model, even if the whole class performed well, some had to fail. This system created competition. Suddenly, grades weren't just about what you knew, they were about where you stood relative to your peers. And for many, this added pressure, anxiety, and unhealthy academic rivalry. So, where are we now? In recent decades, educators have begun to seriously question the traditional AF model. Is it truly serving students? Is it accurately measuring learning? Enter competency-based education. In this model, students advance once they demonstrate understanding, not because a semester ended or a test was scheduled. It's about mastery, not seat time. If it takes one student 3 weeks to master algebra and another 3 months, that's okay. Some schools, like High Tech High in California, have ditched grades altogether. Instead, students receive narrative evaluations, portfolios, and project-based assessments. Others have adopted standards-based grading, where students are graded separately on their understanding of each specific skill or concept. No more averaging a 100 on one test with a 60 on another. It's more granular and some argue more honest. Then there's ungrading, a radical approach where teachers give feedback but no formal grades, focusing on growth and student reflection. And let's not forget the psychological impact. Research increasingly shows that letter grades can decrease intrinsic motivation. When students chase the grade instead of the knowledge, genuine learning suffers. What does the future hold? With the rise of AI and personalized learning platforms, we're entering a new era of education. Imagine this. An AI tutor tracks your progress in real time, identifying exactly what you struggle with, and adapting the lesson accordingly. No need for midterms, no final exams, just continuous adaptive feedback. Instead of being judged by a single grade, your learning journey becomes more like a fitness tracker. Constant feedback, personalized goals, and an emphasis on growth over time. In some systems, students are already getting digital dashboards instead of report cards. These include skill progressions, reflection journals, and teacher notes. But of course, not everyone agrees on where we should go. Some argue that without grades, accountability may suffer. Others fear that too much tech could depersonalize learning. The key question remains, what is the purpose of a grade? Is it to rank, to sort, to motivate, or to provide meaningful feedback that helps students grow? So next time you see an A, or a C, or even a 0, remember, this system is just one version of how we could measure learning. It's a product of history, shaped by culture, industry, and tradition, but it's not permanent. And it's definitely not perfect. Maybe the real question isn't what grade did I get, but what did I learn? Thanks for watching. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into the systems that shape our lives, and drop a comment. What do you think about grading? Should we change it, or scrap it altogether? See you in the next one. Know more. Be more.